Welcome to Star Talk, everyone. And I'm here with my really good friend, Mitchell Levy. We haven't talked in a long time now, although we've talked many times on many different interviews. And now he happens to have the letters DR next to his name. I think someone went and got his doctorate.
Yeah,
Hi,
crazy, right?
Mitchell.
Carly, nice to see you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, there are letters in front of my name, sometimes behind my name that I never had before.
Exactly. And I'm really excited to hear about your journey since Thinkaha.
So the I have lived a really good life so far. Um, Let me do a big picture summary that people think is important, but then I'll talk about why there's now doctor in front of my name. So I've been in Silicon Valley for 40 years. Um, I've been happily married for 37. Have a son who's 28, who's amazing. And I've started 20-ish companies. I've sat on the board of a public firm. One of my companies, and this is where we spent a lot of time together, is a publishing company. We published over 750 books. The book that's behind me is actually my 68th book. And when you have a publishing company, that becomes easier. And what what ended up happening in different parts of my life is I think I actually what I want to do for those who are listening, my apologies. I'll try to talk to you about it. I'm actually going to show my sort of PhD journey. So between 2019 and 2020, I had interviewed 500 thought leaders on the concept of credibility. I got many gifts, but two amazing gifts. One was the definition of credibility, which is expanded to be the quality in which you're trusted, known, and liked. And that definition has 10 values associated with it. What really came out of that was the concept of clarity. And there's a definition of clarity. I call it the CPOP, your customer point of possibilities, where any human, any company can articulate where they are executing their purpose in 3 to 9 words. I've done this now with over 1,400 companies and individuals, and it's absolutely amazing. The problem was it is so simple and so powerful by itself. It wasn't as valuable, basically selling credibility or selling clarity wasn't as valuable because most humans think they're already credible or think they already have clarity. I'm going to tell you that 98% of every company, of every human I talk to, does not have clarity. Even the people who are selling clarity, if you ask them, hey, 3 to 9 words where you're executing your purpose, it'll be 5 minutes before they're done sharing their 3 to 9 words, right? And so what happened is I entered the PhD program, but realized that this is in 2023. I realized that I did not want to do additional research on credibility or on clarity. And I got the opportunity to think through this concept, and it's what I'm calling executive abundance. And what executive abundance is bringing abundance to the ecosystem in which a company or which you operate versus just having more money. And so my dissertation, what I ended up studying was the short-termism that's pervasive in society today because of quarterly financials. And this extends everywhere. The big downside, Carly, is that what we ended up doing is we ended up focusing on optimizing what companies do. They optimize employee productivity. The most expensive asset for any company are employees and payroll. And what we've been doing since the 80s and 90s is optimizing employee productivity. Well, the problem with what's now happening with technology, with AI and robotics powered by AI, what we're seeing are mass layoffs of companies who can now do things more efficiently with AI, not necessarily properly, but more efficiently with AI than humans. And so you're seeing a lot of humans being laid off. You're seeing a lot of people who are entering, they went to college and they're into the workforce, but the intro jobs are no longer there. And what happens if you bring this to its inevitable conclusion? The most optimized form of employee productivity is zero to limited employees. Well, now we have a different problem. If we don't have people working at companies being paid, our economy is structured around consumerism and buying stuff. Well, where does the money come from? Because we clearly don't like this concept of socialism. So we're moving towards a no-win scenario, whether it's a Terminator solution or whether it's a Soylent Green type solution. Neither of them are possible are positive, right? And so the executive abundance is addressed to boards and CEOs who recognize that just making money isn't the only answer, and they need to do something else. So it's a bigger picture, a bigger ecosystem.
Yeah, I mean, in general, I think people, they value money over people. And that is not a good way to do a business. You need to value your people in order to have a good business, right? So yeah, I think that is happening a lot right now. Talk to me about AI a little bit. Like, where do you see how it can be helpful, and where do you see that it can be disastrous?
AI is incredible. So let me give a personal example and then we'll genericize it. I have had working with me a person I call my chief content writer for 13 years. I'm sure you've met her before.
Mm-hmm.
And what's nice is as a book publisher, I would find people who could ghostwrite for my authors. Well, generally speaking, it takes about 3,000 interviews or 3,000 people to find that one person who's amazing.
Mm-hmm.
So Nika's that one in 3,000 and been with me for 13 years. And at first, pre-AI, I would say to her, "Hey, you know what? I'm focused on this area. Can you write something for me?" And she'd go, "Great, give me a brain dump." And then we turn on the recorder and I would just go and say a bunch of stuff. And she goes, "Got it. I'll send you something." And, maybe 80% of the time it was really good with some changes. 20% of the time it's like, "Oh my God, let's start over. This is not what I meant." Right. And then we put a framework in place and fix it. And hopefully it's better the next time. Hopefully. Notice I said hopefully. Right. So what's happened with AI is Nika on steroids. Right. So for me, what we've done is I have many different bots that are different personalities of Mitchell that do certain things. And we have one that does writing for me. And so now what I do is I share with Nika what's the article topic, and she's the one who asks AI for it, gets the results back, interacts a number of ways, because most important part about being and accepting an answer from AI is to be discerning. By the way, something we're not taught in school at all. And so she does the first pass of discerning, and I'm going to do the 80% again. 80% of the time, what I get is really good, and 20% is like, yeah, this didn't work. It's not. We didn't define things properly, and remind me to come back to the input-output diagram. You and I have talked about that before, and let me come back to that. So in general, we now have at our fingertips, or Nika does for me, but now when I go and do something new, I have at my fingertips thousands of experts that have done this before. As an example, Carly, one of my authors has been an expert witness for 20 years and has made a really good living at it. Well, when I did my graduation, I recently graduated with my PhD, and I say besides family, two people sent me physical notes. I mean, physical letters, and she was one of them. So, if listen, in today's world, you send me a physical card, I'm going to call you back. So I called her back, and next thing you know, we're having a conversation. I'm like, huh, maybe I should do the expert witness stuff. Tell me more. And so she gave me a blueprint. This is what I've done. This is what works. This is what I should be doing. That's great. So I went to AI. I said, listen, I think I'd like to take a stab at this expert witness stuff. I've done it once, but not enough. I need to set myself up. Do you think I should do it? Yeah. Because that's what AI does. Yeah. You'd be great for it, right? I said, well, give me a blueprint. Now, what was really amazing is that AI's blueprint was absolutely almost 100% overlapping with what Rosemary Coates' blueprint was. Right? So AI has all of these experts who have done things, and then they pull it all together. Now, you always, when you get the answer back, you got to say, well, no, that's not right. You got to fix it. Right? So you always have to be discerning. But I now have at my fingertips, I have Rosemary times 100 or 1,000 or 100,000, right? And it's my personal person that I could ask questions of. And many people have said, small business owners have said, hey, listen, I now have with AI a 6-person staff. Right. So that's great. Right. That's the good news. What's the bad news? So good news is you now have at your fingertips resources you never had before, right? In so many different things, particularly, most people listening would not know this, but at some point in time, there were people walking around door to door selling you the Encyclopedia Britannica, because that was the only way to get knowledge is you'd buy a physical set of books. Well, you have the entire Encyclopedia Britannica and more at your fingertips if only you were smart enough to ask for it. Right? Now, this is an interesting point. Smart enough to ask for it. The educational ecosystem in the world is not structured for the world that we're now entering into. Okay, so the educational ecosystem of the world was structured around and built on the Industrial Revolution, right? It was, hey, we're going to move these, let's say, not super smart business-wise farmers into cities, have them work in factories and offices. So we need to train them to be abundant, to learn what we tell them, and then to basically replicate, like from the CEO down, what we tell them to do. In general, that's our educational system today.
It is. I think our educational system is really sad at the present moment. I wish they taught things like empathy, how to manage money, basic emotions. I mean, we just don't teach our children the things that we need in the world. We're just giving them raw memory things to take a test by.
Things which are absolutely not necessary today. Anytime I'm at a dinner party or talking to friends and they go, oh my God, I wish I knew that answer. All I have to do is pose the right question to GPT. It's at my fingertips. Right.
Speaking of
and so
school,
the education system is wrong today, Carly. So let me finish this thing with AI and then we'll come back to that. Right. So if the education system are building and producing people who will work in the industrial age, what we're doing is we're knocking out their empathy. We're knocking out their creativity. We're knocking out their individuality so they could be corporate employees to do exactly what the corporation does. But the corporation was built on the promise of lifetime employment and taking care of their people. That doesn't exist anymore. And so the people that are being educated are not being educated with what's necessary to live in this society that answers are at your fingertips, but they may or may not be the right answers. And so what does the word right mean? So we're not teaching people and giving them a structure of right and wrong. Now, some people would argue that that, and this is that the people who are trying to bring the Bible and God into the education said, well, right is there's one and only one, right? It's this religion. Well, any religion that has hate over love is not the right religion for me, right? So what's interesting is right and wrong is, and I'm going to use a word called spiritual, and I'm going to say spiritual means that love presides over hate. And if we could have that and then teach our upcoming, corporate people that, hey, you need to be discerning. You need to have empathy. You need to be the type of person who wants to empower your family, that wants to empower your employees, that want to make sure your customers are happy. We need to focus on making money, but not as the first thing we focus on. It's maybe the fourth or fifth thing we focus on.
So I had an interesting question. Did you ever think of interviewing your son about his college experience, talking about our education system? I think that would be a very fascinating interview.
That would be.
He just went through school, it's kind of like, what did you get out of it? How was it? Was it rote learning? Did they actually challenge your thinking? Did they, I think that would be a great interview to do.
Yeah, it's what ended up happening for him, which was really amazing. This was when my father was still alive. He was going to go and get a business degree. And my dad, this is actually my stepfather, but my dad basically encouraged Duncan to get his electrical engineering degree. And in electrical engineering, they don't teach you human skills. My wife did that. But they definitely teach you how to look at how things are made and how to optimize things going forward. That was my undergrad, was industrial engineering. And so it turns out that he got a really great education because he didn't have to memorize stuff. He got to, how do you build? How do you look at, analyze, and then rebuild? And he is one thing that happened for Duncan, but short answer, no, I haven't interviewed him. I will think about that. I'll be with him in a couple of weeks. But the one thing for him is he became something that we all need to be. He became a data analytic nerd, right? So because and came from electrical engineering, right? It's simply, well, what is the pattern and how does it work? And what do the numbers tell you? Right. And if you used AI to tell you what the numbers tell you, it may not be the right answer. So how do you analyze the results that come from AI? And so he's now building AI systems for the company he's working with. So
I'm really proud of him. I'm so happy for him. It's great.
Oh,
I
thank
always
you.
hear what he's into. So let's go back to your input and output. You asked me to remind you about.
Oh, thank you. Oh yeah, I completely forgot. So there's something I learned in my undergrad. My undergrad, even though I took it through the business school, but it was taught by the industrial engineering school. My undergrad was a Bachelor of Science in stochastic and deterministic models of operational research. So I was taught how to model people and systems and improve them. And that's really everything I've done in life. And something I learned back then that I realized just became part of my operating system and I didn't think about it was a simple concept called the input-output diagram. So for those who are listening or watching, if you have a piece of paper, it's best if you could do it this way. Carly, if you have a piece of paper in front of you, you take out a pencil and or it could be a pen, but you just draw a box in the middle of the piece of paper.
Okay.
Then you draw a line that goes into the box, right? So piece of paper, you label the whole thing, input-output diagram, you put a box in the paper, you have a line that goes into the left-hand side of the box, and then you have a line that goes out of the right-hand side of the box. And you label the line on the left-hand side as your input.
Right.
And you label the line on the right-hand side called your output. And it's surprising how everything in life can be simplified by making sure before you dive into the black box, you understand the inputs and outputs. And it's so funny. I had a conversation with Mika, my chief content writer, last night, because she reminded me when I was using a term for both the black box and the output. I'm like, oh my God, I got to be better, right? So having an accountability partner who keeps me accountable to use my language properly, even my language I invented, I have to be reminded to use it properly, right? That's great. And she had done something where she used AI effectively and gave it the wrong output. And so AI gave her a great solution. I mean, it was a absolutely elegant solution. I couldn't have thought of a better solution given what she had done with the output she had. I mean, AI is amazing. And I'm like, but that's not the output I want. Right. So what happened, I'll actually explain this. I'm in the middle of creating 3 new keynotes. And so her request was create 3 new keynotes, keep the content very singularly focused on one area. That was what she wrote as her output. So she created one of the keynotes. And what I said to her afterwards is how amazingly elegant this is and what it works. But what it ended up doing is it kept it very singularly focused, but creating one new solution that I don't even talk about today. And so what I said was, I think the output should have been different. The output is all 3 keynotes relate to each other. So the keynote you worked on has to now tie back to the second and third, and the output is people are interested in the second and third element. And she goes, oh, yeah, you're right.
Yeah, you want to grab them.
And so that's the thing that gets really interesting. I can't wait for the next version of this keynote because I think we've got the right outputs, right? But as a human, so next time somebody comes to you and there's something going on in their life and you know them really well, if you know them really well, you're going to assume you know the inputs, outputs, but you still may want to say, so what happened? Okay, input. What did you expect to happen? Output. Then you could talk about what's in the middle. But most of the time for us as humans, somebody tells us something and we just jump in with the answer. And the problem is that's our answer, not their answer. Until we understand their inputs and outputs, we can't give an answer that's appropriate to them. Right? And certainly that's what, in terms of AI, depending on how you ask the question, if you don't frame the inputs and outputs properly, you're going to get an answer that's amazingly elegant, but it may not be the output you're really looking for because you didn't do a great job on the input output. Yeah, that's why I wanted to get back to that just so you could think about it. You asked about AI. Yeah,
I totally get it. And the thing about AI that most people, I think, are afraid of is, like you said, the takeover. However, I think people are minimizing what a asset it is in terms of research, refining things. And as we know, the old saying, we don't know what we don't know. Well, AI can help us with that because it's our blind spot. We don't know. We don't know what we don't know. Right. So right. I think AI has a valuable tool, especially for that as well. Tell me more what you're going on about. I know behind you have a new book that you said was your 68th, I think you said. What is it called and what is it about?
So it's the dissertation, as I mentioned, was focused on short-termism and the problem we have with quarterly financials. And I wanted to give a solution or a potential for CEOs and boards to make a choice to focus on the bigger picture. So I'm gonna show the primary graphic from Executive Abundance. So for those who are interested, go to Amazon. It's Executive Abundance is the name of the book, and you can get it in hardcover, Kindle, or if you want Audible, then you got 5 hours of me reading it. I read it myself because there's nobody as enthusiastic about this topic than me, so I have to read it, right? And what's interesting is there is simple for those who can see the graphic. It's a very simple graphic. It's just not hard for people. It's not easy for people to do. One of the things, and Carla, you've known me during the credibility and clarity time, and one of the things that was interesting is that I realized 5.5 years into the interviews and deploying a credibility and clarity system is that clarity and credibility are things that people need, not what they want. People already think they have clarity. Even 98%, just if you're listening to this, there's a 98% chance you don't have clarity. Just is. I did the research. I've now helped over 1,400 companies and individuals get clarity. And clarity, definition, is in 3 to 9 words. Where do you execute on your purpose? Kind of as simple as that. So what's interesting is the executive abundance engine is not just clarity. It starts with clarity, moves over to credibility, and then you need to do it consistently. So same message to different audiences. And then you need to have a commitment to do it in times of scarcity and success. And so I had proven through the dissertation work that those are ordered and interdependent. And so it's bigger than, I was given a gift when I started the credibility interviews. I interviewed 500 thought leaders on credibility between 2019 and 2020. I was given a gift, the formula for clarity. I just didn't know how to present it to the world because it didn't work as a standalone gift. It needed to be bundled into a framework. So now you've got an engine, which is clarity, credibility, consistency, and commitment. And then we apply that across an ecosystem. Now, ecosystems can change. Carly, for instance, I'm doing a speech to the Navy coming up. And for them, I will swap out the ecosystem here with a Navy-focused ecosystem. Right? So it's interesting. Thinkers 360 called me the #1 ecosystems thought leader in the planet. Right? So it's an area I spend time and energy on. But now let's step back. Whether you're running a company of 1 or a company of 100,000, the most important stakeholder group you need to focus on is yourself and your family. All right, it seems really obvious, but how many executives end up going to the hospital, getting divorced from their wife, or being estranged from their kids? The majority, much larger number than it needs to be. Now, the next thing we need to focus on is the employees. And you could say, as a company, our employees are happy and they're great. Why would Gallup say that 80% of employees in the United States are unengaged in their work? Well, it's because we're not providing the right solutions for them to do work. It's treated more like work versus play. So if we can actually empower employees and respect our employees, what's going to happen is they're going to take care of the third stakeholder group. They're going to take care of the customers. If we do take care of the customers, guess what? The customers will take care of the investors. And then we do that within a larger ecosystem or a larger component, which is the community overall, both virtual and physical. Now, what's interesting about the framework is that investors are fourth, not first. Now, you know this, Carly, I sat on the board of a public firm for 9 years. Every time I made a decision based on one stakeholder group, investors, a fiduciary responsibility for investors. Every decision was based on whether or not we're going to hit our quarterly numbers, period. What would have happened, and as I started analyzing some of the key decisions I made back then, what would have happened if there were metrics and we really cared? I mean, there are metrics for employee engagement. There are metrics for customer satisfaction. It's just companies don't really give a shit. If they cared about customers, they wouldn't pay the customer service people the lowest amount of money in the company, period. Listen, you're CEO of a company and you care about customer service. How much are you paying customer service people? And if it's the lowest amount compared to other people, you are lying to yourself if you say you care about customers, period. Right? So the interesting part here is if we had different metrics that we really cared about. Now, caring about it is we measure it, we talk about it, we share it. So when we presented our quarterly results, we would present more than just our financial results. We would present the other results, and we would train our investors that those other results are also important. That's where we need to go.
I agree. We have to have systems in place. I agree with the input and output. I always love everything you're doing anyway, because we're always
You're sweet. Thank you.
such wonderful conversations anyways. I love it when I've actually missed our conversations and our interviews. As a matter of fact, tell Duncan I'll interview him.
So for me and you, mostly extroverts and love doing this. For humans like my wife and my son, they're not as excited. This is painful to hear those words versus pleasurable. I will share this, but there's no guarantees, and
I know.
probably a very low probability of a yes.
Yes, just tell him I'm proud of him, and if he wants to do it, great.
Okay, will do.
All right, tell me what's coming up next.
It's at this stage, I'm at a really fun state. What happened? So I graduated just recently. So June 5th, I graduated, which was a Friday. On June 8th, I kind of woke up and said that exact question, what's next? Right. And I'm part of the Marshall Goldsmith 100 coaches. So I'm an executive coach. And one of the talks Marshall gave like 4 or 5 years ago was a talk on the concept of enough. Because we as humans are trained that enough is never enough. And it was during that talk that I realized that, I had hit my bucket list items. Right. I really hit the things I wanted to hit in life. I never really kept a bucket list, but if I had one, all the things that I wanted were on that. And it was really funny because there's a natural inclination to go, well, add something to that. As a matter of fact, I'm walking out of the room with one of my peers who, when I mentioned this to her, she goes, well, you need to add to it. And my most immediate response was, well, didn't you just listen to what Marshall just talked about? And she goes, oh. And the answer is, so what's next for me? It's not about the next big item I need to overcome. I actually didn't get a PhD because I wanted letters before or after my name. I just recognized that what I saw in this concept of executive abundance needed to come from a doctor. And so what's next is letting, it depends if you're religious, letting the God winks come to you. If you think of spirit or universe, letting the universe set the right stage for you. And so as I have conversations with people, I get excited about different places to play and what's next. And it's about influencing. One of my goals is to change the life of one human for the rest of their lives. And I do that every day. So that's one of my goals. I have to decide if that's still the right goal, but that's one I've had for about 3-4 years. And the thing that comes, and I hit mine today at my previous conversation, it was like crazy cool, right? But the thing that's interesting is I will do what's next based on what comes my way, and it'll be the right thing.
Because you're tuned in. You're tuned in. Realize that, life brings us what we actually think about, what we take action steps towards, and what we're passionate about. And if you stay in that energy field, it'll just come about. Doesn't mean it's going to fall in your lap. We have to do the work. Yeah, it's definitely coming your way. I know it is.
Yeah, so that's what's next.
Okay, wonderful. Well, I have actually had a wonderful time talking to you as always. I look forward to our next conversation. But for the listeners and viewers, you can find Mitchell at mitchelllevy.com, or you can Google him and you'll find him all over the internet. And I look forward to reaching out to everyone once again. And please have a wonderful day.
Goodbye. Carly, thanks for having me. Thanks for
Mitchell. It's always a delight having you. And you tell them also where they can reach you.
Oh, no, you did great. So I always recommend going to mitchelllevy.com. You'll see the stuff I'm working on. If you're really curious about this concept of executive abundance and where you fit in, because just so you know, each and every one of us is an executive in our own lives. Pick up the book, listen to it if it makes sense. You can get to that off the website. And if you decide it makes sense to talk to me, you could also get access to my calendar. It's at Mitchell Levy, MITCHELLEVY.com.
Yes, indeed. And if anyone reaches out to me for you, I will totally let you know. And as
Great.
usual, it's wonderful having you. See you next time. Bye, everyone.